Next up, we go to Eugene, Oregon. Noel. Go ahead. First-time caller. Hi, Noel.
Noel, hi. Yes, thank you, and thank you so much, George, for taking me on the air. And Dr. Horowitz, God bless you. I want to start off first by validating some things with you, giving you some information, and then asking you a question. Number one, many years ago, I was on the Art Bell show, and Captain Joyce Riley and I were both in the military together when she was trying to expose the Gulf War illness.
Ironically, she was on last night with us. Small world.
Good. I missed her. I missed her and her husband. I love them dearly. And I had the Concord Hour at the time. My name then was Maggie Rose. I was International Radio. I had gotten onto the Concord Hour with Republic Radio International, later Heritage Radio, through our Art Bell and Joyce Riley. Because I had worked for the BATF, I've been in the military over 35 years. I'm a nurse. And for those of you out there, licensed nurses are not second-class nurses. We are good nurses. One of the things that I was concerned about when I was working for the BATF, there was a private lab which was on the island between Berkeley and San Francisco, the Navy base right there. It was a private lab, and the things that they were asking me to do as a word processor was to sanitize some of the records where they were actually planning stuff that was causing the fatalities of some people. And because one of my relatives had worked for the Department of Treasury, and I have a very famous uncle who's a Hollywood movie star, I called them up and I said, look, I'm in the military. I'm very scared. I'm a single mother. What do I do? And they said, get the hell out of Dodge, because they said, your life is in danger with what you know. Well, later on in my military duties, I was at Letterman Army Presidio, San Francisco. And I want to validate what Dr. Horowitz is saying. Right next to Letterman Army Hospital, outside the back dining room facility, and many of you who have been stationed at Letterman know what I'm talking about, there was a lab. They were doing experimentations at this lab. One day, without my knowing what this was, this lab, I had walked out of the lunch facility and walked into this building by mistake. I don't need to tell you that I was accosted and told that as a corpsman, I needed to get myself back out of that building and back into the main part of the hospital. About a year and a half later, one of the lab techs came to me, whose name I will not mention, and he gave me a tape, and it was called the Stryker Memorandum. And it was about Dr. Stryker trying to expose this new thing that had just hit San Francisco Presidio called AIDS. And Dr. Stryker was trying to warn people that this AIDS virus had been created in a laboratory, probably in Europe, if not in the East Coast, by the World Health Organization, and deliberately released out into the populace when they started opening up 3 clinics for shots in San Francisco, Detroit, New York, and Wisconsin. And what they were actually giving many of these people was the AIDS virus. And knowing it was going to mutate, and knowing it was going to be that people who were getting the shots would go home, their wives, heterosexual, or cross out of into the heterosexual community. And as a licensed nurse, when this lab tech gave me this video, he said, now let me tell you, Dr. Stryker's brother is a lawyer. He ended up dead mysteriously after he went to 2 congressmen exposing what he and Dr. Stryker had discovered. Those 2 congressmen ended up dead. Okay, a few years later, one of my friends, I'm only going to mention the first name, Farrell. Farrell had walked into the building in Oklahoma City. He walked into the VA clinic that was there at the Oklahoma building. He walked into the VA clinic, an Afro-American gentleman came out in a white lab coat. And Farrell said, well, why are all the chairs here just full of boxes in the lab so we have no place to sit down? The black gentleman said, these are all the shot records from all of the soldiers that have served over in Europe. All my soldiers, Dr. Horowitz. These were all soldiers who had been given experimental shots. And later on, they were telling us that they would walk into a room. And I remember when I walked into the room, I would get a shot on either side with an air gun. These guys were walking into a room, and they would be given shots out of vials that were laid up in tubes on the tables. They were not told what they were being given. When they went back to their medical records later to find out what it was they were given, it was all blanked out. Well, the gentleman who came out and spoke to Farrell said, we're doing an inventory of all the immunizations that were given for the anthrax shots for all the soldiers serving in theater and in Europe. 2 days later, the Oklahoma Federal Building was collapsed.
Jeez. Noel, we don't have enough time to talk with you about all of that, but that's worthy of more information. If you'd send me some more contact information, I'd appreciate it.
also integrate what we just exposed in the last newsletter. Again, go to the newsletter archives at healthyworldstore.com. Please, please, please read that article because it goes into these links at the Presidio in San Francisco, directed by Michael Aquino, who's the top propagandist for the United States military. He operates, according to a lot of evidence and testimonies, the current MK Ultra CIA COINTELPRO operation for deception.